And here we go. Sharon, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let me get my screen share up again. Okay, wait, not where we're supposed to be. Sorry. There we go. All right, there we go. So, hi everybody. All right, so what I'm basically going to go over are different what people call rules. They're not hard and fast rules, but they definitely will give you an idea of things to look for when you're taking your pictures. So, all right, so a couple of things you want to do before you taking your picture is first of all, make sure your camera's working properly. And I know that sounds really silly, but sometimes if you go out and you don't have your um, batteries working or your lenses are dirty on your camera, so that's not a good thing. So you definitely want to make sure that your camera, cell phone, tablet is in good shape. So definitely adjust your camera or your phone or your tablet settings and decide what you want to be taking. So don't just say, well, okay, I'm out. I'm going to just take whatever comes along. It's always a good idea to maybe have an idea of what you're going to do. So maybe today I want to take some flowers or whatever, but just don't get locked into that because then you'll miss something really good. Couple of other things. When you're doing your travel photography, you definitely want to identify your place before you start taking your picture. So just take a picture of something that identifies where you are. If you're going on a tour, take a picture of your tour ticket. If you have a map, take a picture of that. You're going into a museum, take a picture of the museum. You're on a cruise, one of my favorite things. Take a picture every day when you come off. They always tell you where you are. So, any of those, so that when you start taking your picture, then you'll know exactly where you are. Because I take so many pictures that when I start reviewing them, if I don't know where I am, 10 days later, I'm not going to remember where I am. So, every time you go someplace new, identify your place. Another thing that is really important is to check your surroundings and your background. And I was photographing this function. These are two radio personality in here in Clearwater, and this was one of the guys at the it was a barbecue function fundraiser. So I'm getting them. I said, okay, make sure you have a good smile, and okay, all right, that's it. I'm going to take your picture. And I was so concentrated on the two guys. Here you go. Ruined the whole picture. So I kind of got it out of the picture. But if I had just moved over a little bit more and shot it at a little different angle or asked them to move, I wouldn't have had to do a whole lot of post production work. So it's a good idea, like I said, to look around, visualize what you're going to be doing. Okay, so some basic rules. So this is really what I want to get into for you. And I'm just going to go over these, but these are the ones I'm going to cover as the basic. Our rule of thirds, and if you don't know what grid lines are, I'll show you in a minute. Leading lines, rule of odd, which is exactly what it sounds like, odd numbers, your perspective, where you're looking. Lighting is always very important. Make sure that your subject isn't in shadows. And framing is always nice. So you could use bushes, look through trees, just get something to frame what your picture is. Okay, so here we go. This is a grid. If you're using a camera, go into your menu. If you're on your phone, when you're in camera setting, there's a little gear on your phone, at least on the Androids. I don't know about the Apples, but there's a little gear and it'll actually say grid. And it looks like it might be distracting, but if you keep it up all the time, it's not, and you'll get used to it. So it's very important. Balanced subject. So you would like to have your main focus here, 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 or here, or just, if it's big. A lot of people just focus and have a dead center. Try putting up the grid lines and use them for a while and play around with that. All right. Rule of thirds, which is basically using your grid lines. So if you remember, here's your grid lines. So grid, 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 grid. So it makes a little bit more interesting, I think, and that's when the same thing, grid, grid. So you can see it balances your picture more. It gives you where to look. Leading lines. Leading lines are where your eyes are drawn to. And lines lead someplace. So that's what you're looking for. So here we have our line, and they don't have to be real lines, but just kind of natural. It kind of draws you into your picture. You have these lines kind of drawing your eyes. You can see that. Here are these guys. You have these lines sort of framing them. You can see. And plus you have the lines on the building. So there are lots of different lines that are not actual lines, but you can use them. He has a diagonal line right there. The door line has these little lines, the building lines. He's almost centered. He's almost centered. When you're taking your pictures, don't have to follow the rules exactly. So breaking the rules sometimes are better. You could have put it over here, but if there was something else distracting over here, you don't want to include that in your picture. So you just see he's doing something, he's writing something, you're focused on him, he's in the front, so your eyes follow. Okay, rule of odd. 3 things, 3, 5, 1. A little bit more interesting than 2, 4, 6. So, and we also have a line here. So you can see our grid started there, going towards the grid. Perspective, what you see, how you view things. What people sometimes don't do is look behind them. I've gotten some of my best shots after I've walked past, just turning around and looking and see what's behind me. Because when you're looking forward, you have one view, but then when you turn around, it can sometimes look totally different. Or you might want to look up, especially if you're a birder, then, birds are not necessarily at your eye level. They like being safe. So a lot of birds are up high. Water birds are by the water, so they're down. So you want to do this. And again, here you are. Here's your grid with this. You can see here's our leading line here, our leading line here. The legs are actually kind of leading lines. So another perspective, look up a lot in addition to looking down. A lot of people say don't shoot straight on. Depends on what you're shooting. I wanted to get the sun behind the balloon, so that was the angle I was in. My balloon was slightly rising, so that's what I got. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. Anybody have any questions so far before we go on to the next group? Edward, anything? Anybody? No?
Nope, I don't see any questions. Anybody have any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Okay. So here's our next group. I'm not even going to go over saying them because I have individual slides, but this is the next group that we're going to go over. All right, this is a fun one, rule of repetition. So if you've ever been to a bakery, you know they like to put their food together. If you've ever been to a function, their food is always arranged in nice little lines or little groupings because it looks appealing, rather than things being thrown on. When you look at food photography, you'll notice how people shoot their food. And they always look for the patterns, the rolls, whatever. Or some that are repeated. So we have patterns here. This was at a fishing village. So we have all that. This was a building. So you could see the repetition. This one's a rule that a lot of people don't use enough, I think, the rule of space or negative space. So a lot of people are like, oh, look, there's the moon. Let's take a close up of it. But sometimes you want to have this so you can see that, oh, yeah, it was rising. This little guy, he was just kind of looking at the sand. So, but you could see there was a whole lot of sand around him, and he was walking and he had stopped and he was looking at something. There's another rule I'm going to just go over in a few seconds, but remember this shape and then the reflection. Okay, some more rule of space. Here's our bird. So you could tell the bird probably flew this way and landed. So we gave him enough space to see what was happening here. And then the Ferris wheel, you want to give that impression that there's a lot of space, you can see a lot. Symmetry. So sometimes symmetry is nice. Now this is nothing with the rule of odd here. This is just basically showing, here are two leaves. This was in Manhattan, the R.H. Macy building. So you can see 2 and 2. So we have our symmetry. So kind of like opening like that. So you can kind of think of that. Close up. A lot of people are afraid of macro photography or getting too close. But sometimes this is a nice accompaniment. So let's say you're traveling and you do a lot of panoramic scenes or big pictures and you get the whole view. Sometimes it's nice to stop and see something really close up. So depending on where you are, what you like, close up illustrates a little bit more of what is there. Okay, your layers. So this is kind of a way of making something almost 3D without it being 3D because picture is flat. So if you have things in the front and in the foreground and the background, you can see it almost looks like it's spiraling down to the guys in the boat. And it kind of looks like there's a lot of movement because you can see the birds, the wings flying in different directions. So this kind of gives you more of that action 3D type of effect with the depth. Okay. This one is nice because a lot of times when you're taking pictures of people, birds, there are very distracting things in the background and you can't really get them out of the way. But if you blur the background, your subject comes into a little bit stronger focus. If this was clear, this would be very, very distracting because of all the lines coming down. But it's blurred, so it kind of blends into the background and the bird pops. Same thing with this little penguin, little baby penguin. So you don't want to really see every single rock in focus because then it would distract. So just think about when you're taking a picture, if you can get blur, that's always nice. Or if you can't do that, then try to really isolate your subject if it's an individual subject. Okay. Movement, rule of movement. Again, this is where you don't want to have your subject in the middle if it's moving, unless you can convey that there is movement. So his little foot is raised here. There's a lot of room here. So you know the camel, this is where the camel's going to end up eventually. He's just walking along there. Foot is up off the ground so you can tell walking. Here's that framing. And here's some more camels, and he has his foot up. So you can tell they're all walking in a line. Again, movement. You can tell the plane is just going to land, but it's not quite there yet. You know that the plane's going to land. And here we have sort of a mirroring. You can see that the horse's foot is up and the woman's foot is up. And they're both going in the same direction. They're on sort of different paths, but they're going in the same direction. So we have our leading lines saying where they're going. Okay, and this is the framing that I was talking about. So sometimes it's just nice to have a natural frame. So here we had the bushes, the leaves, the sand, the reflections, and here was this pretty area with boats. And you can see the sky and a lot of the beach. You can tell that that's an inviting place that you want to go. This was in China, in Forbidden City. This was maybe waist high. And so what I did was I just bent down and shot through it. But you have that whole framing of the whole area in Forbidden City. So if you can find natural framing, that's always nice. Okay, so any questions about any of those? I know I'm throwing a lot at you, so if I'm going too fast.
Yeah, so there's two questions.
Okay.
One is from, I think two of them are from Marsha. So one of them is from Marsha. So Marsha, when you're on your iPhone, the grid setting isn't in the camera app. You have to go to the settings app and then go to the camera section, and there's in under composition it says grid, and you can either turn it on or off. So it's a little harder than on some things where it's just right there. So you've got to go into settings and then go to camera and find the setting called grid, and it's a little toggle. The other question she had was, how do you blur the background on a phone camera?
Ooh, good question. I don't really know that, but I think if you experiment with where you're standing, it might do something. I don't use a phone to take pictures. I have a 35 mil, digital camera. So
sometimes what you can do on the phones is, okay, I know on the iPhone, what you can do is you can tap while you've got the subject, like, okay, so Sharon's got this shot of the city. Okay, so the camera might think, oh, I need to focus on the wall because that's the thing that's closest to me, and that's not what you want. But one of the things you could do is you can tap on the area where you want the exposure metered and where you want the focus to be. And sometimes that may then blur out the other stuff. It just depends. So you just have to try it a couple of times, go to a scene and see, like the picture that she had of the bird with the background with the trees and the bushes in the back. Go out and try it and see if you tapped on the bird, and if you tapped and hold it, it locks the exposure and locks the focus on the bird, and hopefully all the other stuff will be out of focus, because
And then,
that's not where the focus is.
and then if you do that, if you lock on that or use automatic focusing, if you walk a little closer, then your subject should be clear, and then it should blur the back also.
Right.
So sorry, I don't know that. Like I said,
Yeah.
I'm not overly good with phones.
Yeah. With a camera, what you're doing is you're changing the f-stop to focus, to change the field of view, field of focus, so that
Yeah,
you either have everything in focus or you just have a small sliver of space in focus.
Anybody else?
I think that's it. Right.
Okay, so a whole bunch of more, but the two I want to point out to you are the two down here. Break the rules or combine them. That's always good. So let's go over a couple of these. So rule of colors, opposing or complementary colors in the background. So this is the same shot, but this is a close-up, and you can actually see this a little bit better. This is more almost blown out. So you can see all the other colors that were competing with it. But if you just wanted to focus, then sometimes getting a little close up, and then you could see the different colors. And then backgrounds, and on all cell phones, there's in the settings or in that app, I guess also, you can change your colors. You can pick which colors you want in your pictures, and even make them black and white. So that's always interesting. All right, so your rules of triangles and diagonals are always interesting. So here we have this, and it's mirrored in the mountain. And here we have our penguin and the burrow. So we're kind of making those angles. That's what I was saying in that other picture, to remember the way he was bent over. So sometimes it's interesting just to have different shapes and play around with them and see if you can find more of them when you are photographing. It just makes fun. And here we have the roof. So we sort of have a leading line here. It's not a great one. If I could have gotten it out of the picture, I would have taken it without of that, but it was impossible to get the mountain in if I wanted this roof. So sometimes, and if I cropped it, it really wouldn't look like anything. So you just need to be careful. And sometimes you just want to take your picture. It doesn't have to follow any rules, but you want the memory. So don't worry about it. Okay, our balance rule. So we have here and here, and if you remember your grid lines, we're pretty perfect in the rule of thirds with this one. So your background, foreground. I was walking on this beach. These were exactly where they were. I didn't touch them. The birds were exactly where they were. And I just moved around to frame it the way I wanted it in the composition. And that's what I'm saying. So if you're walking this way, it might not look like anything. But if you move over a little bit, or you move back, or you move forward, you might get a more interesting, pleasing shot. Sometimes a very simple picture works best. Sometimes this will occur naturally, that you'll get black if it's very dark where you're taking your picture. Your flash can just flash out and highlight your subject. If you're in some place that's totally dark and you don't want to use your flash, If you have a little flashlight, you know, those little, they're about this big, you can carry them, stick them in your pocket, just use them to spot something. So that's always a good thing to carry with you when you're going out, especially at night. This was in a house. It was a historic house, and I saw it out of the corner of my eye, so I left the tour to take this picture because I just liked the way the sun was coming in on the windows and just illustrating that. So again, but you can see it was dark. I didn't have the flash on. I just wanted the scene to be very natural. So simplicity sometimes is better than something very busy, and it makes for a better picture. Okay, and here's our rule of odds again. So here we have 3 penguins, 3 balloons. Okay, I did this one already. Sorry. Okay, perspective. Okay, so again, this is what I would say. Look up, look down. Try to scale your height. So here was this Rapa Nui on Easter Island. You had people over here, but again, really hard to tell what the scale is. This is my mom. I was traveling with her. So I said, go over and stand near the statue. So you can see they're very tall, but it gives you a more balanced perception of how this is. Okay, looking up when we were in Egypt, just look up, look out. Again, I put this in again because this is really important. I find this one, I do a lot of looking around, up, down. Sometimes if you get lower, so in other words, don't just stand where you are and look down, but bend down if you can, and then take your picture, or bend down and look up. It gives you more height. So if you don't have a telephoto lens, like on cameras, you can't get too many close up. You have a very good telephoto lens with your feet. Walk closer. If you want a wider shot, walk back. So don't just rely on your camera. You could use your whole body to do this. So rule of multiples, so same subject, different views. So here's that table that I like. This is where it was. So you could see, here are these, here are these. So you can see, same shot, but totally different. So break your rules, combine your rules. So rules of third, leading line, okay, looking off. So depth of field in here, everything in focus. So you can see, you have your bird looking out, your leading lines, you have your shadow. Mirror images are always nice. Peggy's Cove in Canada, again, your leading lines with the reflections. This was a picture. I thought this was really pretty. And I must have stood there about 5 or 10 minutes because I just wanted some birds flying in my picture. So I just stood there and hoped that some birds would happen along, and there they are. So that's why if you have a vision of what you want to take a picture of, it helps. Otherwise, you say, oh, okay, that's kind of nice. And then you take a picture and you walk away. But if you said, well, you know, I really would like a picture with the water and the boats and birds, then you know you might need to spend some more time with it. Okay, any questions about any of those?
I don't see any in the chat box.
Okay. So some other considerations when you're taking pictures. Panoramic. Most cameras, most phones, you can take panoramic pictures and stitch them together. And sometimes that is the best thing to remember and get the overall view of setting your scenes. So sometimes the details. So we were in a mosque, and obviously people were praying, and We were told if you're going to take pictures, you need to be very respectful, which of course we are. But while I was looking, these two women looked up and they're like, take our picture, take our picture. So I was like, okay. So I took their picture. They were really thrilled about it. This lady, I just thought it was very interesting with her hands, how she was sitting. So I took a picture to orient everything, and then I took my close up of her. So that was special. Vertical. Most people do not do vertical pictures, and sometimes you can get a lot of good shots going vertical. You could see the sun setting but reflecting. Again, you can see the clouds. So go vertical. Think about rotating your camera. Cropping is your friend. So we were in China, and this was at the bottom of a little hill. At the top of the hill, there was this church, and there were so many bride and grooms there. That was one spot in that town, it was called Qingdao, that they were taking their wedding pictures. That was evidently a tradition in that one city, that they would come and have their pictures taken there. Well, here was one bride at the bottom, and you could see this photographer assistant was holding his reflection. She was just sitting there. The photographer was over here. But I thought it was really interesting that it was in English, number one, but I thought everything was really, really distracting. So I cropped it. And it's kind of cute since she's getting married to say, well, you want some coffee? You want some tea? Or is it me? I'm the bride. So it was kind of well placed where she was sitting. So I like that shot.
Question real quick on that one. So did you reposition yourself and zoom in, or did you do that after you took the photograph?
I took it after I took it after when I was in post production. I just cropped it. There's a setting that says cropping. So if you're on in Windows, there's Microsoft Picture Gallery that has some. There's Picasso. There's a lot. Adobe. Whatever you use to do your processing, there should be a cropping tool. The only problem with cropping is if you make it too small, you're going to not have enough pixels for it to be a good picture. So you want to be mindful of your cropping and don't take it down too far. Okay, if you're taking action pictures, so the bounce house with the 4-year-olds, put your setting on sports mode, which is really, it's also called burst, but it'll take 5 or 6 or 7 pictures just by holding down the button that you use to take a picture. Cell phones do that too. You just hold it in and it'll go bing, 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 and you'll get 5 or 6 or 7 pictures. So my image was when I was in Regent's Park in London, and there were tons of swans. It was like, I want to get a swan landing, and I want to see the swan's wings. So you can see these were 2 pictures in my burst mode, not so great. This was my finished picture. This is what I ended up with. This is what I cropped it to. So that was my vision of what I wanted. So fortunately, I was able to do that. But I must have taken over 100 pictures to get this one picture. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to hold the burst and it's going to all of a sudden magically reappear. You do have to have patience for certain types of photography, and especially when you're dealing with wild animals. They're not going to pose for you. So you're the one who has to figure out where you want to stand, what's the best view, what you want to focus on. But cropping can increase the close up, and your sports mode will increase your chances of getting what you want to view. So since I can't take selfies with my camera, I had to be inventive. So we were in a train station, my mom and I, it's my mom. So mom and I, we were in a train station. I think that was in Hong Kong. And we went down we weren't taking the train, but we went down to see what it looked like. And here was one of those mirrors where you can see the whole thing. So it was like, okay, so here we are. And you could see our setting. So that kind of had a double purpose with that one. This one I was on a cruise ship and it was nice and I wanted a picture of myself on deck. And so I shot into a reflective surface. So you can see, I think it was a door. So I just figured out how to take my picture and focus where I was, and there's my memory. So a lot of different things. Okay, this is what I was saying. So this was the area where they had the bride and groom, and they were all taking their pictures. And this guy looked so happy. He was just so happy, and she was so happy, and they were posing. And I looked at him and I said, and he goes, like, okay. So I got his picture with his bride. So they were there. He was looking right at me. You can see he was looking. She was looking at their photographer, but he was looking right at me. So I don't like taking pictures of people in this type of setting without asking permission. If it's a big street scene, that's okay. But if you're doing something specific and focusing on somebody, then you really should ask. Same with this gentleman in Australia. He was telling me he comes and feeds the pigeons. And a lot of times people, when you ask for their pictures, sometimes they expect you to pay them $1 or $2. Because originally he didn't want me to take his picture. And so I said, well, how about, can I give you a couple of dollars? And he goes, no, 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 no. I said, well, to buy some bread for the birds. And then he said, okay. And then he let me take his picture. But if they don't want you to do that, then obviously don't take the picture. And again, put yourself in your picture. So here's one of those other situations. I was in a little tram. There was a mirror. I'm right here. I always try to get a window seat, and if possible, I try to sit in the front so I don't get a lot of people in my pictures. So here we are. Mom and we're in Alaska. So here is our sign. Here I was at a castle in Ireland, and here I was in South America with this huge crab in front of a restaurant. So if you're traveling, it's always a good idea to document where you are. I don't really like having my picture taken, but when I'm traveling, I do, because I like seeing me where I am. And don't forget to take pictures of the people who you're with. Again, take more than one shot. This was the same time. He was twirling and then he was slowing down. So same person, you can see it's the same location, just a little bit spaced differently. So depending on what you want, think about what you want, what you need. I just want this one. I liked because it really captured his movement. You could tell that he was twirling around. But this one I like because you could just see all the colors and you could see his costume. So they're both, I like them both. So again, ask for help if you're not going to take your own picture, if you're not going to do a selfie, or if you want to get something bigger than what you can get with a selfie, ask somebody. Most people are really happy to do that. I always say, well, I'll be happy to take your picture if you can take mine. And very rarely do I get refused. I'll sometimes get people say, no, I don't need my picture taken, but I'll be happy to take yours. This one, I had just gotten to Japan. This was in 2019. Nobody else was there. And there was this one young lady. She was cleaning the area. Didn't speak English, but I asked her. I said, I have my camera. I said, so she took my picture. and we were at this show, and we decided we wanted a picture. They said, come up and take our pictures, and they would take it for us. So we got those too. But have fun. Have fun. I make my mom do lots of silly things because it's nicer than just standing there. So we were walking past this one little store, and there were all these mannequins. And I said, go over there, go pose. So there she was. So she took her little picture with that. Okay, so let me stop here. Questions? Anybody have any questions? I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. So I want to thank you again for your attention. But is there anything else before I go on? No? Okay. So don't get caught up with saying to yourself, I need to have a perfect picture. Oh, the lighting's not so good. Oh, this is out of, whatever. This is not really good. Take your shot. You can always take another shot right after it. But once you leave, you can't go back and get it again. So take your picture rather than worrying, is it a perfect shot? Try to have fun doing it. Don't miss the enjoyment of it. If you're really caught up with something, well, maybe you don't need a picture of it. So don't worry. Don't take your eye on off what you're doing to get a picture and then miss a lot of whatever it is. Again, don't forget, take the picture of where you are rather than relying that you'll remember it. Ask the person's picture. And the best pictures are the ones that mean the most to you. Doesn't mean that they're great pictures or anybody else is interested in them, but if they're interesting and meaningful to you, then that's the best picture for you. And again, enjoy what you're doing, what you're seeing. Don't worry about the rules. But if you practice them enough before you go on your trip, then you don't have to think about them. So it's like anything else. More practice makes better. So if you practice some of these rules, then you don't have to think about them. They'll become more automatic for you. Okay, so I have a couple of other things I want to show you, but if you need to get in touch with me, here's my email. Just put FFI Dallas presentation on it so that you will come into my regular mailbox and not in spam, and I'll know it's somebody from the group. So if you want to look at some of my other pictures, that's the website. And so I wanted to thank Layla for arranging this, and Paula, who unfortunately is not here, and Edward for doing this. So let me get out of this. Okay, so a couple of other quick things I want to show you. Can I let me get this over there? Okay, so a couple of things. So this is my camera. It's a Canon. A good idea when you're traveling with a phone or anything, put some tape over the name, because you don't have to advertise to where you're going that you have a really good camera. So I always just cover this up. Again, I don't have a camera strap that says Canon on it. It's a generic camera strap, same thing. So I know when you buy your cameras, uh, they come with straps because they want to advertise it. But if you're traveling, especially if you're not in such a great area, you don't want to be advertising. Let them look at somebody else's cameras, not yours. So you want to do that. Have a camera that you can use. I love this camera only because, well, not only because, but this one has a really great lens. I mean, it goes out really, really far. So I don't have one that has an interchangeable lens, because this camera really does great pictures in a good range. Okay, so let's say you're traveling, you have your camera. You don't want to bring a big bulky bag with you. This is something I just found a while ago. It's Velcro. You could use this for your phones. They come in small, medium, large. This is a medium. But all you need to do is take your camera and wrap it up. So you don't need a really big, bulky camera bag. So any kind of little bag, you just throw it in. So a lot better than carrying a huge, huge camera bag. Those of you who are crafty, you could probably make something like this. So soft on the inside and something that little Velcro attachments could fit to. And then there you are. So you could make something like this. So that's easy to make. If you're looking for something for your cell phone to carry, and I didn't have any, I was looking for it and I couldn't find it, but if you took bubble wrap, so imagine this was smaller, but if you took bubble wrap, folded it, stapled the sides, you could then slip your cell phone in there, and then you have a nice little padded cell phone holder. So if you have extra bubble wrap, that will work. With a camera, if they have a ring underneath, and some of them do, if you put a piece of string and tie it there, if you step on the string, it's a tripod, so you can just hold it because it'll hold your camera steady. So that's a good trick. And I have 2 more things to show you. 3 more things. Okay, so my camera bag, I have, looks like a purse. Doesn't look like your traditional camera bag. And I was at a photo conference and they gave me this, which is a lens cleaner, which is really, really handy. You definitely want to have a lens cleaner with you. But let's say you don't have one. Let's say you have one at home from your glasses. Take your lens, take a hole punch a hole in it. Take one of these, put it through the hole, and there you are, and you can attach it to your camera bag. Don't have a camera bag? Put it on your belt loop. If you don't want to carry a lot. I mean, you can always put it in your pocket, but if you put it in your pocket for something else, this is always very handy to take. So, cameras, you want a rain sleeve, which means you just put your camera in here, put your lens out here so it doesn't get wet. But let's say you don't have one of these. You're on vacation, you didn't have one. A shower cap from a hotel works great. You can just wrap it right around. Did I bring one? No. But if you have a shower cap, all you have to do is wrap it around. Now, you're not going to take pictures with it if it's really, really bad weather out, but it will protect your camera. Same thing with a cell phone. If it starts raining and you maybe want to try taking some pictures, you can put the shower cap over it and then close it back up. So those are some little handy dandy tips. The last thing I want to go over with you is how to hold your camera, which is maybe one of the most important things. So with your phone or your camera, you want to hold it, and then you want to take your arms and anchor them to your side. And you want to stand with your feet apart, push in, hold it, take a breath, take your picture. Because if you don't, sometimes your breathing's off and your picture blurs. So a lot of time people get blurry pictures because they're breathing when they're taking their pictures. So it's always a good idea to hold your breath before you take a shot. So, and to make sure you have a good steady base for how you're standing. All right, so those are some of my best tips for you. So thank you for all of your attention.
Thanks. We have one question.
Okay.
And yeah, so Marsha wanted to know, so she found out how to turn on the grid on her iPhone. And so so what did you want? You wanted a little refresher on what she was talking about with the grids?
Okay, so grids, you want where the grids meet. So those 4 points. Did you want to see the slide? You didn't want to see the slide, did you? Yeah. Okay. Basically, just where you want is your picture to. Do I have a picture here?
Yeah. So that what it does is it takes the subject, and and like she said, you can break rules if you need to, or you can not follow the rules. But what it does is it takes the subject out of the center of the frame.
Right. So,
okay. So sometimes you like the picture she took of the couple that were getting married, and the guy was going like this. There's a situation where you're like, no, I don't want them off center. I want them as the focus of the
they're
picture.
the focus.
But there are other times where you want to add a little balance, like the photograph that she had of the boat in the water. It wasn't right in the middle of the photograph. It was off to the right. So that gives you all that extra space of the ocean. And and then you're gonna then you can't go like, well, I wonder where it's going from or where it's going to, but it's not like dead center.
Right. They're like the ones with the camels or the people walking. You want to leave the space, but you want to be able to focus your eye and your camera equipment in that. So, okay, I'm trying to do this in the box that where I'm at. So it would look like here and it would look here. So I would be centered, but let's say I wanted to show more of the room with me in it. So in other words, I wanted to say, oh, look, there are my pictures. So I would be over here, but you could still see my pictures on the wall or something like that. So it's something that you want to play around with. Like, where do you want your focus to be? Zoom, we want to be obviously in the center because people are focused on us. But it's individual for everybody, and you definitely want to practice with it. The other thing I wanted to say is just having pictures, do something with them. So take them out, frame them, like what I did in my guest room here. Frame them so you can enjoy them, so you can see what they're like. Make a photo book, make a collage. Just don't leave them in your computer or in your phone, because then you don't really have that enjoyment. So, I mean, I have my pictures all over the house because I've done a lot of traveling with my mom. So it always brings back good memories of our travels together and the places we've been to. I'm just trying, I have some old pictures here. I'm just looking.
I buy a picture frame that has 6 or 8 spots in it. I buy them from Walmart. Half of them are vertical and half of them are horizontal. And for each trip, I do a wall thing. I take a picture of who I traveled with. I take an iconic picture so I know the country. I don't always have the name of it, but there's something iconic of that trip. And I have a whole wall of all the places that I've been, that I walk down 20 times a day. And so it always reminds me of the pictures that I've taken. But thank you so much. I wish I had had this before I started taking these trips. Now I know where the grid is.
Yes,
Right.
well, you know, it takes I taught myself all of this stuff in the 10 years that well, 11 years I've been retired. So before that, I mean, I just took pictures and it was like, okay, whatever, whatever. But they were more like snapshots rather than pictures. And there really is a difference. So I think once what you just said, so if you know a little bit to look for and having that grid right in front of you, I mean, that is just so easy to take a picture. So, you know, if you're thinking of holding your phone up and you're saying, oh, wait, no, and you just move it like 2 seconds over and then you can see with the grid and, you know, it doesn't take a lot of effort or thinking about. You just can move your phone or your camera and grab a shot that, you know, is pleasing to you. That's the most important thing. If it's pleasing to you, or to bring back the memories, or so that's a great idea to have that. I got something in Michael's that looks like an old-fashioned picture frame, and I have all my pictures in it. If you want to see it, I just had it's right out. It's in the hall. I can run and get it and show you. But yeah, there's just a couple of pictures, and it's just nice. They're framed. So however you want to do it. My mom, I make photo books. We don't travel together anymore. She's 95, but when she was comfortable traveling, every trip we did, I made a photo book for her. So now she looks at them and goes, "Oh, I remember that. That was so much fun." So it's always a good thing. So with the kids, it's always nice to have like a little album for them so they can look at it. You know, here's your fourth birthday, fifth birthday, sixth birthday, or
Yeah.
this is your fourth year. This all happened while you were 4 years old or while you were 5 years old. So there's a lot of different things you can do, or what you just said, Marsha, have a picture frame that has a couple of different pictures in there to illustrate those occasions. So that's a great idea.
Fortunately, I'm usually able to get 6 or 8 good pictures out of the couple hundred that I take. So the ones on my wall look pretty good. It's the other 99 that aren't so great.
Oh, you know, and that's everybody. That's
Yeah.
everybody.
Well, and that's the one of the benefits now of digital cameras.
Oh yeah.
You know, when the last time I used a real camera, a film camera, I went to Peru, I think it was, and I shot up, I don't know, 30 or 40 rolls of film. My next trip was to Cuba, and I brought my first digital camera, and I shot up like 600 photographs. And it was just like, and people kept on saying, "Why are you taking so many photographs?" And kind of like one of the things Sharon is like, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be in Cuba anytime soon, so I might as well capture this memory right now, rather than going, man, I wish I had taken more, you know, captured more memories while I was down there. So
The nice thing about digital is you don't like it, you don't have to keep it.
you don't have to pay for the film, you don't have to pay for the paper.
I edit my pictures every night when I'm on a trip. You know, the pictures I took of the floor or the sky or the things that I know I'm never going to want again. I get them out of there every night. And then I go back and edit them when I get home. And then a year or two later, boy, I can get rid of a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Well, also, I don't think the iPhones have this, but the Android phones will take a memory card.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Apples don't do that. They've locked all that stuff out, but you can attach through the plug, you can attach an external drive, but it's not as easy as on the Android.
It's not as easy, or you can, I guess, send it up to the cloud and have it stored that way.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're shooting on location, get as large a memory card as your phone will take. I mean, they're very inexpensive now. You know, they used to be $100s for the large ones, but now the smaller ones, and they're not that small. And I don't know if everybody knows the difference. Usually the phones have the little ones, the little micro ones, but they come with an adapter, which just slides in. So after you do that, you can just put it into your computer.
Yeah.
At
All
least
right,
some-
anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, do iPhones have that? iPhones don't have those little
No.
cards. No.
No, iPhones don't. It's only Androids, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that's what I was saying. Somewhere in your iPhone, I think you can upload to the cloud.
It
Yeah.
does it automatically.
You got to turn it on, but yes, it can do that for you.
It goes it automatically. It goes it on my computer. It goes it on my iPad. Boom, it's done.
So that's always a good feature, so that if you happen to drop your phone and you can't use it, at least you don't lose your pictures that you've already taken. So
All right.
good.
Thank you, Sharon, for all that information. I know, like she said, it's a lot,
Yeah.
but if you capture one thing out of there, then that's going to help you out. And so what I'm going to do is I will put the presentation up online. So if you want to go back, you can go back and look at the different aspects that she's got. Okay.
If you have any other questions, as I said, email me.
All right.
I can show you.
Okay.
Well, it was a
Thank
lovely
you.
Thank you.
afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon.
Layla, I'll be talking to you soon.
Yes, thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See y'all later.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.